Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. I'm Grant Cunningham, and this is a show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. In the next hour, we're going to talk about how you can prepare and equip yourself to face that worst case scenario and keep you and your family safe from harm. Now, this is, we don't do politics or religion on this show. This is a non-denominational show, and you're not going to hear any crazy conspiracy theories or crackpot commentary, just reliable information that you can use right now to help keep you and your family safer. And if you would do me a favor, I'd really appreciate if you would share the show with your friends and your family and your neighbors and your coworkers, all the people that follow you and that you follow on social media. I'd really appreciate it. And you know something, I think they will too. I think they'll appreciate that you thought enough of them to share this information with them. And of course, it comes to you the first and third Thursdays of every month right here on Personal Defense Network. So we have if you've read the announcements, if you've followed the social media, we've got a great show tonight. My special guest tonight is Aaron Craig, and we'll talk to him in a little bit. This is going to be a discussion that you're not going to want to miss. In fact, I suspect you're going to want to watch it over again. But first, I just got back this week from teaching my Threat Center Revolver course in beautiful, sunny Phoenix, Arizona. And it's wet and nasty and rainy and cold here in Oregon. We've got a very cold spring going. And so I left my wife here, and while I went to sunny, warm Phoenix to teach. And I can tell you she was not particularly happy about that, but as I explained to her, this is work. I mean, you don't take me to work, I'm not going to take you to work. Yeah, that went over about as well as you would expect. Yeah. Anyway, I was allowed to sleep someplace other than the couch last night, which is good. But many thanks to my hosts at Phoenix Firearms Training, John and Nan out there in Phoenix, for hosting me and hosting this great Personal Defense Network Spring Training Tour class. And but while I was out there, by the way, I shout out to fellow PDN contributor Cecil Birch, who stopped by and say hi. And we got to talk shop for a little bit. And it's always great to get together with another PDN contributor and talk about things and discuss what's going on in the defensive training world. So thanks a lot for stopping by, Cecil. So as I said, this was a stop on the Personal Defense Network Spring Training Tour 2017 edition. And don't worry, this was not there's a lot more coming. That's what I'm trying to say. We are just getting started with the training tour this year. We have over 100 classes on the calendar for the training tour. Now, the tour goes all the way to the end of January, and this is only the first part of April. So we're really just getting ramped up now. And there's a lot of really great classes coming along. And I want to share these with you just really quick here. I'm going to screen share this. Here we go. And we're going to screen share that. And there we go. And hopefully everybody should be able to see this now. And we have some, like I said, some great courses coming up. In the next couple of weeks, Rob Pincus is going to be teaching a bunch of courses. He's going to be in Virginia and New Jersey and Kansas. He's going to be teaching his new 2-person armed defense course. Now, this I think is new this year. It was either new this year or last year, but it's a relatively new course, and it's getting really good reviews. So that's a 1-day course in Virginia, and then he'll be teaching combat focused carbine in Virginia as well. He'll be moving then to New Jersey, White House, New Jersey. That's an interesting place. Teaching armed home defense tactics, which is something that if you've taken, a defensive shooting course and you know all about concealed carry and dealing with defensive shooting in that context, armed home defense is a little different, and it's worth your while to take a class in that. So Rob's going to be there. Barrett Kendrick is going to be in Kansas teaching fundamentals of combat focused shooting. Barrett's been on the show. You know Barrett, and he's a great instructor as well as a great guest. So check that out if you're in Kansas. Andrew Branca, who is a PDN contributor and a lawyer who specializes in self-defense, and particularly armed self-defense. And he has a terrific book out called The Law of Self-Defense. If you don't have a copy, you should. It should be on everybody's bookshelf. It is that important. And he also teaches a tremendous law of self-defense class that goes along with it. And he's going to be in Burnett, Texas, teaching the law of self-defense, his level 1 class. If you're anywhere near, I have no idea where that is in Texas, but if you're anywhere close to that, you should get in there and get into that class, because Andrew teaches a phenomenal class. He's the best at this, that the whole legal part of self-defense. And Jamie Onion, my buddy Jamie Onion, is going to be in Reno, Nevada, teaching defensive firearms coach certification class. If you want to become an instructor, there's a good start to doing that. And Rob Pincus goes to Kansas to teach fundamentals of combat focused shooting. And then on the 21st of this month, 21st through the 23rd, in Virginia, Craig Douglas is going to be teaching his flagship Extreme Close Quarters Concepts course, ECQC. That's really hard to say. Most of us just say ECQC. And it is the gold standard in dealing with being in contact with another person. Phenomenal course, well worth your time and effort to take. And then on the 23rd of this month, Rob Pincus is going to be back in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, teaching fundamentals of combat focused shooting and his armed home defense tactics class. And then on the 2nd of next month, he's going to be in New Hampshire teaching advanced pistol handling. So that's what's coming up the next 2 or 3 weeks on the spring training tour, as I said. And you can kind of scroll down here. You can see there's just a lot of stuff going on in the spring training tour this year. There is something for everybody. And no matter what piece of the puzzle that you're still missing, there is a class on the training tour that deals with that, from medical to legal to home defense to close quarters to everything, even instructor courses. So be sure to check those out at Personal Defense Network. Just click on the training tab on the menu there, and you can look at the descriptions and, of course, the course dates, and just click on any of them, and you'll be taken to the instructor's page where you can sign up for those courses. So take advantage of this tremendous opportunity that happens only in the spring here at Personal Defense Network. All of the instructors on the tour are PDN contributors. They've all been vetted. We can vouch for the tremendously great material that they all put out. So take advantage of that. Go train this spring, and hopefully your spring is going to be a little less wet than ours has been in Oregon, which is why I went to Arizona and left my wife at home. So anyway, we have a special guest tonight, and this is a conversation that I've been really looking forward to having because we don't often talk about what happens after defensive gun use. We spend a lot of time talking about shooting. We spend a lot of time talking about, close quarter stuff. We spend a lot of time talking about all this stuff. But we don't talk enough about what happens after the defensive gun use. And unfortunately, it's a topic that there is a certain segment of the defensive training world that doesn't want to talk about this stuff, that doesn't consider it, I guess, manly or something like that. But the fact is that anytime we do anything to defend ourselves or anyone else, there are things that happen because of that, and we should be aware of those. And that's what my guest tonight is going to be talking about. My guest, Aaron Craig, spent 8 years in the Army as a medic and came out and became a internationally certified civilian flight paramedic. And he was like 228 in the world certified to do this. It's the top paramedic certification. And he also served 3 years as a security contractor in Iraq. He's a Texas licensed armed security officer, a licensed bodyguard, and a licensed CHL instructor. He's trained with the U.S. military, the Department of State, great instructors like Rob Pincus, Jeff Gonzalez, and a bunch of others over the last decade. So this is his first appearance on Training Talk, and he's recently written an article for Personal Defense Network, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hey there. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
That's okay. Better you than me. One of the funny things about Google software, and we were discussing this earlier, that I can mute people, but it can take like 45 to 90 seconds for them to unmute after I click the unmute button. And it's just really frustrating sometimes. So, Aaron, thanks for being on. I'm looking forward to a great discussion. You've done a lot, gosh, in your life already so far.
Yeah, some might say that. I have.
And so you've been, gosh, you've been a lot of places, done a lot of stuff, and know a lot of stuff. And so it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Well, we're going to talk about an incident that happened to you. Now, this is like 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah, just over 2 years. Yeah, day after Christmas.
Okay. Oh, it was the day after Christmas. Okay.
Hmm.
So this was an interesting sort of thing that happened. Why don't you give us kind of a thumbnail uh, narrative of the incident and what happened?
Um, so my wife and I, we were driving to the movies. It was a lunchtime date. Driving down the road, and I noticed up ahead there was a car parked on the side of the road. Um, you know, a couple blocks ahead, and some stuff was flying out the passenger side window. Um, I had told my wife, I said, "Hey, did you see that? There was some stuff flying out of that car, and the driver's side door was ajar." And I just mentioned to her, I said, "Hey, why don't you roll your window down and get your cell phone out? Maybe there's some type of medical emergency happening here." And I'd really thought, maybe somebody was choking or having a heart attack or something, and somebody was panicking in the car. And so that's how it all started. We ended up um, kind of creeping up to this parked car, and when we got within visual range, that's when I um, saw the guy punching the lady in the passenger seat, close fist, um, and we see that, and we're like, oh my gosh, and I didn't have the car stopped yet, and so as I started coming to a stop, the assailant then goes and she slumps over in the passenger seat, and he postures up on top of her, up over her, and over the center console, and starts throwing elbows down on her as hard as he could, and she's screaming like louder than I'd ever heard at that point in my life, screaming for help, and just carrying on like crazy. And so I said to my wife, I said, "Damn, I think that dude's trying to kill that lady." And she said, "Me too." And I said, "Okay, call 911." And she was like, "I'm on it." And I bailed out of the vehicle and drew my pistol, uh, and came around the back of the car and took kind of an angle on him, and came up extended and started yelling commands at him to stop attacking. And eventually he heard me. He ended up looking over his shoulder at me, and his eyes got real big, like, "Oh, what shit? What did I get myself into here?" And so he ended up eventually turning and facing me, and we were having a dialogue. I was screaming at him, trying to get him out of the car and on the ground. He was saying stuff to me, that I don't entirely remember. Um, uh, so, it was like a standoff at the OK Corral. We ended up talking back and forth. I'm, hollering at him, get the hell out of the car and get on the ground, and eventually complied. Um, and and so he got out of the car, he got on the ground, and he was doing his thing where he was like getting up, and then he was getting down, and he was getting up, and I kept thinking to myself, this dude's gonna rush me. Um, I thought for sure he was just kind of prepping himself to take off in a full sprint at me, and I thought, man, I really hope this guy does not do that. Uh, so so then what happened? he, we're having this dialogue, I guess you could say. He's yelling at me that he was afraid I was going to shoot him. And, and I'm trying to tell him, hey, look, I'm not going to shoot you. You need to, just chill out. The cops will be here. And it kind of was escalating, and I was not really controlling that situation as well as I probably should have, or could have. I felt like it was maybe spiraling a little bit. And and so I thought to myself, I said, God, man, I need to try and de-escalate this a little bit and take it down a notch. I didn't want to. And so I ended up taking the firearm, and because this big concern was that I was going to shoot him. And so I had taken the firearm and I kind of brought it up, at a high compress ready, and tilted the firearm on its side and pointed the barrel towards the pavement so that he could see the right side of the pistol. And I had my finger indexed. And so I'm yelling at him like, hey, I'm like, look at here, man. Look, I got my finger here above the trigger well. On my finger is indexed. I don't have my finger on the trigger. I'm not going to shoot you by accident. That's not how this works. Just, sit tight, chill out. The cops will be here any minute and they'll sort it out. And so when I did that, he came down a notch. I could see his body language and demeanor changed a tiny bit. And, I think maybe at that point, I don't know what was going through his head, but she was still in the car screaming, crying, wailing, and bystanders all around. Cars, traffic stopped all around. This was a busy 6-lane state highway, through one of the wealthiest suburbs in the state of Texas. So, yeah, I don't know. The eventually the police officers arrived, and yeah.
How long did it seem to take before law enforcement got there on scene?
Man, it seemed like it took forever, actually. Yeah, I vaguely remember screaming over my left shoulder and asking my wife, how long till the effing cops get here? And she's hollering at the window at me. I don't know. I'm not on the phone with them anymore. So yeah, it felt like it took forever.
So what kind of, really quickly, did you ever find out what kind of damage he inflicted on this poor woman?
Well, so here's the thing. The police officers had in their report that she had a cut mouth or lip. She was Nigerian, so her skin was dark, and her hair was very full, and most of those blows that he was landing were on, her head, where her, she had very thick hair. So, it was conceivable to me that, hey, he's throwing elbows on this person, but, unless you get in there, move her hair out of the way or shave her head bald, you're not going to see, a bunch of goose eggs and whatnot on her head. And she was making what appeared to be kind of a conscious effort to defend herself. I remember watching her left arm, kind of trying to cover and brace her face and head and neck. So, yeah, that was about it.
So, I mean, being a paramedic yourself, you understand the dangers of blunt force trauma to the head, obviously, probably better than most people do. And I'm sure that was one of the factors in your decision to intervene. Is that reasonable to say?
No, yeah, that's very reasonable. I mean, I had always been taught that elbows to the head and neck were very easily deadly force. So, that was kind of where I was coming from. I probably wouldn't have reacted the way I did, or with the firearm, had I witnessed a shoving match at the mall. I felt like this situation was elevated to a much higher level. In fact, had he been just striking her in her body with his fists, like he was when we initially, it's conceivable I may have probably just bailed out of the vehicle and maybe just put hands on, but tried something verbally without the firearm. But once that elbows and all that stuff happened, it kind of changed the paradigm a bit for me.
Right. And I can see where that would, especially like I said, with your combined training between, being a paramedic and being a bodyguard and a licensed security guard. Putting those pieces together, that was obviously going through your mind. When the police arrived, was the interaction with police professional? What did they do?
Well, I don't know. Can I swear on your show? uh, they, they approached the scene from multiple angles. When they were coming down the street, I could kind of vaguely see out of my peripheral vision that they were coming. I could hear them naturally too, right? And I'm sitting here and I've never been in that situation before. My mind's going, and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do here? How do I not get shot and killed by the police? I just had never considered that situation before, and so I thought, well, should I, drop my firearm or set my firearm down? And then I thought, well, what if I did that, and this guy had a firearm or a weapon on him, the assailant, and now all of a sudden I don't have a firearm. And so the only thing that I could think of, the best case scenario, and I don't know if academically if this is correct or not, but I had thought, okay, they're coming, they're going to see what's going on. Let me try to look as professional and as put together as possible, right? And so, I had pulled the firearm back, and had my finger indexed, and was kind of in this Sewell kind of position with my hands, and trying to maintain a very still kind of academic shooting posture, and thinking they're going to come, they're going to see it, and going to be like, oh, okay, that guy, he's been trained, he knows what he's doing, or he's not just some thug on the street, kind of a thing. So um, they ended up getting out of their vehicles, and they had their firearms drawn. I mean, I think I had 4 pistols pointed at me. They didn't point any at him, the assailant, just me. The interesting point from an academic perspective was that there was police officers on multiple sides of me, and so had they fired at me and missed, they would have shot themselves. So it was an interesting takeaway on the tactical side. I'm sure it was something that they hadn't planned for themselves, so there's a little training there for them. But anyway, they were rushing me or moving towards me with their firearms extended, yelling commands, swear words, and whatnots, telling me to put my pistol on the ground, get my hands up, get on my knees, the standard law enforcement commands. And so I was just moving very, very slowly. My left hand, I still had my right hand on the firearm. My left hand was up and in the air, and I turned to the side to the guy that was the closest to me and said, I'm a CHL holder. And he says, I don't give a F what you are, and he's still barking commands. Why I said that, I don't know. I thought, well, I was super nervous. In hindsight, it probably sounded pretty ridiculous, but so anyway, yeah, I ended up going to the ground, put the firearm down, proned out. The rookie officer, it was like his first day of field training, came over and punted my $1,200 Heckler & Koch pistol across 2 lanes of traffic. That's on the video, if you ever see it. They put me in cuffs. I laid there on the street for about 10 minutes, face down on the pavement. And then they came over, they picked me up, they put me in the back of a patrol vehicle, and I was in there for another 10 minutes or so.
Interestingly enough, and my friend Masad Ayub talks very often about the notion that as good guys, I mean, we're upstanding citizens, and we like to believe that there's like a halo over our head, right? That everybody can see that we're obviously the good guy. I mean, we're fine, upstanding citizens. And it's interesting that you talking about that, because it reminds me so much of that idea that we know we're good guys, right? But the cops don't know we're good guys, and that sounds very much like what happened to you. So this is all done. Did they let you go at the scene, or did they take you down to the station? What happened there?
So yeah, they pulled all my licenses from my wallet. I heard them talking. They were saying, "Hey, we need to run this guy through every single database, every system that we have access to. Basically, you know, every state, local, national database." And so that was what they were doing when they were gone, when I was cuffed in the patrol vehicle. And then I'd asked them, I said, would you like for me to tell you what happened? And they said, no, we don't want to talk to you. This was like when they first put me in the car. And then after 10 or 15 minutes, they came over, and they got me out of the patrol vehicle. And they said, okay, we checked you out. All your licenses are legit. You came back clean. All of the victim statement, initial victim statement, and witnesses, all their stories kind of corroborated, and you're good to go. And so they took my handcuffs off and gave me all my stuff, my IDs and everything back. They asked me to hang out in the area because they wanted me to fill out an incident report. My wife as well. And then we did. We sat around for another 10 minutes. They brought us paperwork. We went, and they told us we couldn't sit together, so we had to be in separate places to do the paperwork. Wrote my statement up, turned that in on the scene. And then about another 10 minutes after that, one of the, I guess, senior officers came over to where we were standing. We were standing with a bunch of police officers, and came over, and he said, hey, I just want to let you know I retrieved your firearm from the street. We cleared it. Naturally, a round was ejected. He goes, I just want to let you know I retrieved the round, dusted it off for you, checked everything out, put the round back in the magazine. And you're good to go. He said, so legally, I can just hand you your firearm, right here on the scene. But I would prefer, if you're cool with it, if you just give me your car keys, I'll go and secure your firearm in the trunk of your car, bring your keys back so that a bunch of people don't see me handing a gun over to a guy here in the parking lot. He goes, and then you can go and retrieve your firearm at that point when we're finished, and go about your business. And I was, I mean, I don't have a problem with law enforcement at all. So I was like, yeah, sure. I told him, I said, whatever makes y'all's job easier, you just let me know. Gave him my car key, and he went and did that. And so when we were all finished, I just went to the car, popped the trunk, grabbed the firearm and dropped the magazine in it, and reholstered and got in the car, and we ended up driving away and going to lunch.
Going to lunch.
Yeah.
And adrenaline's still going at this point.
Yeah. It was a pretty solid adrenaline dump. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So that's the incident itself. And in just a couple of minutes, we're going to start talking about the aftermath, because that's what I really want to get into, because this is where it gets kind of interesting. So if you'll permit me for just a moment, I need to pay some bills, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the aftermath. Okay. All right, folks. As you can tell, this is going to be an interesting discussion, and we'll continue it here in just a second. But I want to talk to you for just a moment about premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. Now, you all know about the public side of Personal Defense Network, all the great free videos and great articles like the one Aaron wrote, because Aaron wrote up an article about this, and lots of great information, lots of great free information here at Personal Defense Network. But there's all another side to Personal Defense Network, and that's the premium membership side. And on the premium membership side of the Personal Defense Network site, we have a lot of really great videos and courses that you can take, DVD linked videos, video collections, all centered around a specific topic to make it easy to find the information that you need. And there's hundreds of hours of stuff on the premium side of Personal Defense Network. I've been a premium member since we started it, and I haven't seen everything. I'm sometimes astounded at some of the information that we have there that I haven't seen. And so you can become a premium member simply by signing up. If you go to the website, there are lots of places where you can sign up for premium membership, and it's usually, I think it's $39.95 a year, I think is what it is. But we've got a deal for you. You can get your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for only $10. That's, count them, $10. That's full access for your first year. It's not limited access. It's not partial access. It's not some access. It's full access to the premium side of Personal Defense Network for only $10 for your first year. Well, how do you get this? Well, very simple. You sign up for the premium membership. Like I said, there are links all over. There's a link if you're watching this on the Personal Defense Network website, and I hope you are. There's a link in the show notes for signing up for premium membership, and you can just click on that. And when you get to checkout, I mean, there's a little box there that says, I can't remember if it says coupon code or discount code, but in that box, you simply put this, Grant 10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Put that into the coupon or discount box, and that is what will get you your first year for only $10. So remember that code, Grant 10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, and that's what will get you your first year for only $10. And by the way, of course, we always have to thank Google for eliminating their graphics program here on the Hangouts and reducing us to $19.95. Anyhow, so your first year for $10, Grant 10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Just put that in, and you'll get your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for only $10. So, such a deal. So let's get back to talking with Aaron about his incident on a highway in Texas the day after Christmas. Interesting timing. So after this is all over, you go to lunch, you resume your life. I assume there's an investigation, and investigators talk to you some after that.
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
So you have to take, I assume, time off work to do this.
Yeah, they the event took place on a Friday, and on Monday morning, I got a telephone call from a detective at the city where this happened, and he said, "Hey, we need you to come down to the station. We need to interview you as soon as possible about this incident on Friday." And I said, "Oh, okay. Let me talk to my boss and see what I can do." And so I went to the bosses, and they said, "Oh yeah, man, because it was big news. This happened on a Friday, and Saturday morning, the news vans were parked outside my house,
Wow.
And so everybody knew about it. And so they said, yeah, if you need to go, then go. And so I called them up and I said, boss has said I can come. I'll be right there. And I drove down, and I was met in the lobby. And then they ended up taking me, not cuffed or anything. They ended up taking me through multiple layers of security at the police station / jail, through multiple secure doors and whatnot. And eventually we got to the bowels of the building, and we got put in a square room, just like you see on TV, with the cinder block walls and the stainless steel table and stools that are planted into the concrete floor. And so he says, all right, have a seat here. I'll be back in a minute. And it's just like the doggone television programs,
Wow.
He leaves and comes back and asks a bunch of questions, leaves, comes back, asks questions, leaves, come back, ask questions. So, yeah.
Were they congenial at this point?
Yeah. I mean, he was he was he was professional, and he wanted to know, he wanted me to tell the entire story again. So I told the entire story, and then he looked at my statement, and asked me a bunch of questions about that and specifics, and it was all right. It wasn't horrible.
How long did the investigation take before this actually went to trial?
Oh gosh. Well, the that's a kind of a loaded question, because the I met with him on Monday, and they probably submitted the case to the district attorney, end of that week. They had taken him to jail, charged him with a crime, and he bonded out the next day. The court stuff was just a mess. I mean, it was an absolute mess. I literally thought, I'd never been involved in anything like that. I literally thought that they were going to charge him, and we'd have a trial in 30 or 60 days, and he'd get found guilty, and he'd do his punishment, and this whole thing was going to be over in 6 months. And so what ended up happening was, they filed the charges and whatnot, and then he lawyered up, and it was a disaster. It was like the defense just kept pushing. They'd set a court date for 1 month, and then they'd push it to the next month, and then push it to the next month, and push it to the next month, and the prosecutor's office, bless their heart, but man, I tell you what,
Took forever.
Well, it took forever, yeah. But I would talk to, so let's say, for instance, initially I talked to Jim Bob, right? Alias. Talked to Jim Bob. We'd go through the whole situation over the phone, spend all this time talking. They'd put this trial date on the calendar. I'd have to go and block off time on my work schedule, and then the trial would get moved. The date would get pushed. The date would get pushed, and then after 4 months, the case would get taken from one prosecutor and given to another, and then the whole entire thing would have to start over, and I have to go through all the conversations with them again, and it was just brutal.
Was this a pretty stressful time for you?
Oh, it was horribly stressful. I mean, it just terribly stressful. Lost time, lost sleep. My health got worse.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I solid case of insomnia for quite some time, which I subsided, but it was just not good. It was not what I would expect to happen, before
before it happened, right?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Was your employer it sounds like at least at first, your employer was certainly behind you. Did that put a strain on your employment relationship?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and really, I mean, initially they were like, hey, it was a great thing you did. We're proud of you. Um, you know, we got your back, and go handle your business. And then, before long, they were like, okay, this is nonsense. It's taken, forever. Um, so, yeah. And then, my new employer, who I'm with currently, same thing. I mean, I had to, take some time here and there, with these guys, and I think they were, they were very gracious, and the company I work for is a very conservative organization, if you will. So they're supportive, and but my it was a distraction, right? Major distraction. I'm 40-year-old white collar professional. I've got stuff to do. I got places to go, people to see. I can't be blocking off my schedule every month for this joker's trial for 2 years.
So now, during this period of time, between the two employers, you were out looking for a job, and you, as you said something in the article that that the incident turned out to be kind of a problem as you were looking for work, right?
Oh yeah, totally. The I'm not an HR person. I don't know what the rules are, but most people would assume that you're going through a hiring process and interviewing. uh, more times than not, you're probably going to get Googled, right?
Right.
People are going to look at your social media, your LinkedIn, and so for me, there was multiple pages of professional stuff on Google, uh, up to this incident, and then almost overnight, you Google my name, and there's 6 pages of firearms related results. Where the story was getting shared on multiple blogs, and reshared and reshared and whatnot. And so I had HR people actually tell me, "Hey, we love you. You're awesome. You're a smart guy. Your qualifications are great. Um, however, we don't have any interest in this whole firearm stuff, and we don't want the exposure." Um,
So let's remind everybody here. This was a situation where you were, a good Samaritan, completely in the right, didn't fire a shot. I mean, no shots were fired, and yet they're reacting in this way. And this is, we'll remind everybody, this is in Texas. So all of this, right? You could kind of understand this if it were like Maryland, or California, but this is Texas, and all of this, and they're still reacting that way.
and it wasn't all of them, but I had heard that 3 times. So I mean, it's um, I'm glad in fact, kind of a funny story with my current job is, during the hiring process, one of the senior folks asked me, like, "Hey, is there anything in your background that we have to know, or that we should know, or any skeletons or what?" And I had asked, "Well, so have you Googled me yet?" And they laughed and said, "Oh no, that's not something we do." And I said, "Okay, well, let me brief you on this situation," because I didn't want to, get to the altar with these folks and then have them tell me, "Oh, never mind." And so I brought it up and shared some of the news report on YouTube. And it turns out that my immediate boss is a strong Christian guy, pro 2A fella, and uh, you know, thank the Lord. So he ended up embracing it, and it wasn't detrimental. So yeah, so that's,
How did your friends and neighbors and family react? Was there any change in their attitude towards you?
no, I wouldn't say. not really. I mean, and my, most of them were or literally all of them were supportive. I think um, my son's mom, who I'm not married to anymore, was upset. But I think she was mainly upset because she was coming from the perspective of, hey, why are you getting into other people's business and putting your life at risk? Your son adores you and would be heartbroken if you, died and trying to help a random stranger, So, so yeah, it's over, the support was overwhelming. I mean, I've received a little hate mail, here and there. Yeah, not a whole lot. In fact, far less hate mail than I had expected. Once the news van was parked out in front of the house, I thought, oh gosh, here we go. I literally I was expecting people to show up in my front yard. But that never happened. It was all right. That part was okay.
Um, did and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did you ever worry about reprisals from this fellow or his friends?
Oh yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's my understanding. I'm almost certain that this gentleman's Nigerian. Here on a visa of some kind. I think I'm almost certain. And so, I always was expecting something. Every time I pull in my garage, I've got a different security procedure and different posture, at the house, and and we'd be out front with the kids. In fact, not long after the event, and I had a couple weird incidents where people were coming down the street and they would slow down, near my house and creep and look, but that's something like that's always in the back of my head.
Right. It sounds like you were able to put your bodyguard training to good use here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like I told you, that whole bodyguard stuff. I mean, that was all so I could volunteer at church. I'm not. That's not my main shtick. I'm a software salesman, so I'm sure every little bit of training helps, right?
Right. Now, something that kind of interesting to me, and I think you sort of alluded to this, that something happened interesting at the trial, I guess, where the woman turned on you after all this.
Man, oh man, yeah. So initially on scene. Well, one of the things that happened after the cops were there and everything was I went and asked the officers if I could go and talk to the victim. And they said, well, that's kind of a weird request, but okay, So I approached the vehicle. An officer is standing guard with her. She's in the car, door closed. The officer says to me, what's up? Can I help you with something? And I said, well, I'd like to talk to the victim. And he was like, all right, well, let me see. So he opens up the door and he says to her, excuse me, ma'am, the guy that saved your life is here. Would you like to talk to him? And she jumps out of the car and like takes 2 or 3 steps. I'm kind of back by the quarter panel. She takes 2 or 3 steps and like leaps into my arms. And she's crying, right? She got snot and tears and everything. Still, this is a half hour after the event. And so I'm standing there embracing her. And she's saying, oh, Lord Jesus, thank you for helping me. Thank you. So we had this moment, right? It was very special. And I got her tears and her boogers and everything all over my North Face jacket. And it was just a nice little meeting. And somebody asked me, well, why'd you do that? And I said, this was a very stressful, serious thing for me. It must have been, much, much, much worse for her. I didn't want to like disappear, drive away and have this kind of mystery guy shows up, pulls a gun, she's kind of quote unquote downrange from the firearm. I just wanted to kind of close the loop a little bit and show her that, hey, I'm a middle-aged suburban dad. I'm not some vigilante, some thug, or I don't know. So anyway, that whole thing happens. Initially, she was cooperative. I think she wrote a statement that was, cooperative. And then shortly thereafter, once he returned to the home and I don't know, I guess since they got back together, I guess she clammed up and stopped cooperating. And so they had actually thought that she wasn't even going to show up to the trial. And then she ends up showing up, and they called her on the stand, and she, from what I hear, I wasn't there because they wouldn't allow me in the courtroom. They're doing this thing where only the person testifying could be on the stand and nobody in the viewing area. It was, so, but I heard after the fact that she got up on the stand and basically, said under oath that the whole entire thing was made up. And that it was just in me and my wife's imagination. So, yeah.
Okay.
I was, yeah.
Interesting. And I've heard of that kind of dynamic happening, particularly in domestic violence sort of cases. So I suppose it kind of doesn't surprise me, but it's always a shock when when it actually does. So lessons learned here. Uh, was this? I mean, was this entire incident the way it happened, particularly after the incident was over? Um, uh, was it different than your preconceptions?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yep.
Knowing what you now know, after all this stuff, and the sleepless nights and the anxiety and the issues with work and the worrying about reprisal and all that kind of thing, would you do it again?
Maybe. I mean, um, man, that exact same scenario, knowing what I know now, probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to sound selfish, but or cold-hearted. I'm not. I don't think I am, but it was a. I don't know. I feel like at this point in my life, that bar was raised, that threshold was raised, and I kind of, in fact, it's so funny. My wife and I were driving in the car just a few days ago, and she says, there was a car that was like stopped with the flashers on, and she was like, "Hey, honey, look, there's a car with the hazard lights on. Do you want me to roll the window down?" And she was making a joke, she I mean, I ended up chuckling, and I'm literally driving past the car with my hand like this, like I don't want to, I don't want to get involved in other people's drama, and I feel like for me, where I'm at in my head right now, if I'm going to use my firearm in a defensive situation, it's going to be more imminent threat against me and my family, or close friends, that just the bar has been raised. I don't. So, but we'll never know. I mean, statistically, I'm sitting there thinking about the numbers. I'm sure I'll never again in my entire life, um, um, have to use my firearm in a defensive scenario. But, I just, yeah.
Do one of the questions that I have, and one of the things that concerns me quite a bit about the defensive training world, is that I think sometimes we don't. I think we present sort of an idealized idea of what a defensive gun use is like, and particularly the idea of being the good Samaritan, coming to the aid of somebody else. Um, do you think that as a training community, as a training industry, if you want to use that term, are we not talking about this stuff enough?
Yes, that's correct. We're not, if at all. I mean, we go to courses. We train on the weekends, and it's always, it's always just drills, use of the firearm, and even to the point of, we're practicing how to put rounds down range. We're not practicing how to use the firearm, the presentation of the firearm in that force continuum,
Right.
without pulling the trigger. I had never trained for this. I had never ran a scenario through my head that envisioned this. So I'm out there winging it, and
Right.
winging it is not good.
Has this changed your training priorities of all? Are you planning to change how you train and practice because of it?
No, I don't think so. One of the things is, well, I would if there were, established, reputable courses out there, that, that took that kind of, I don't know, that path. But, I don't know of any. I think one of the more significant changes was that I signed my wife and I both up for, for a legal defense plan. I'd been carrying around the brochures for all those outfits for 8 years probably, and I think for me that for me I think the takeaway from the whole event, one of the most significant ones, was for me, and I'm not trying to sell anything. In fact, I don't even want to say any specific companies or whatever, but for me, if I ever go into a situation like this again, I want a trained lawyer who's a pro 2A defensive firearm guy standing next to me the entire time. And I lucked out. I mean, everything worked out. Everything worked out. It was stressful and whatnot, but at the end of the day, everything worked out. But the
Ultimately, there were any number of ways it could have gone wrong.
exactly there. One degree of shift in the planet, and I could have ended up in prison for the rest of my life.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight and talking about this, because it's something that we don't consider sort of downstream of what happens. We spend all of our time learning to draw the gun and fire the gun and hit targets and all that sort of thing, but we never talk about sort of that managing that period of time when we don't need to shoot. We don't talk very much about that. There's a little bit out there, and the thing that we really don't talk about is what happens afterwards. You know, what you have to do in terms of dealing with the legal system, and you know, the adrenaline and anxiety and all that other stuff. And I think it's awesome that you've written this article for Personal Defense Network about this. And folks, if you should go and read his article, because there's other details in there that we didn't cover tonight. Definitely worth reading. So, and I really want to thank you for being brave enough to come on the show here and talk about this.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Well, it was great having you. And folks, please do consider what you've heard tonight and think about maybe what might happen if you're involved in a defensive gun use. And it isn't all unicorns and rainbows, I guess. So, Aaron, people can find you, I think you said, all over social media. Aaron Craig, Kreag. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. And in the meantime, I hope you write some more stuff for Personal Defense Network, because that article was really compelling, and I really appreciate that. That was a good article.
Awesome. Thank you.
And folks, join us again for our next show, which is going to be 2 weeks from tonight. So the 20th of April. Yes, the 20th of April, just after tax time. How wonderful is that? So please join us just after tax time, Thursday the 20th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, for another episode of Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. In the meantime, don't forget the spring training tour that's going on right now. Lots of great courses that you can take. Be sure to check those out by clicking on the training tab here at Personal Defense Network. Don't forget the discount code for your first year of premium membership for only $10. The code again, and 1995, Grant 10, GRANT, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Please, I enjoy getting your emails. Send me your emails at grant@grantcunningham.com. I got a great one from Steve the other day, who says he loves the show. Keep up the good work. Yes, Steve, thank you. We will. So please send me those emails. Don't forget my site at grantcunningham.com and my latest book, Protect Yourself with Your Snub-Nosed Revolver, which is available on Amazon, both in Kindle and paperback, and of course on the iBooks bookstore as well. And if you need links to any of those, just go to my site and you will find it very, very easily, and check that out as well. So until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my guest, Aaron Craig, for being here and sharing his life with us. And we will catch you 2 weeks from tonight on April 20th, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.